Welcome to Counselor's Soapbox video channel. This is Drug Education, Part 11, New Drug Development. Where do new drugs come from? Most of this will focus on prescription drugs and pharmaceutical companies, but some of the same principles apply to new and emerging street drugs. There are many ways in which new drugs may be discovered. Some come from chemicals found in nature. Others are developed from old folk remedies or accidental discoveries. In one case, a new cholesterol drug was being tested on people with high cholesterol. Some of the people with high cholesterol were depressed. Those taking the new cholesterol med recovered from their depression. Rather than this drug being developed for treating cholesterol, it was developed for treating depression. Also, increasingly, we're using computer-generated models to predict what new compounds might be of benefit. A potential new drug goes through a number of stages in its process. The first stage is preclinical studies. These are conducted in the laboratory. They may be conducted on cultures of cells which are grown in petri dishes and then eventually are advanced to tests on animals, typically mice or rats. If the drug shows promise and relative safety, the company development may file for an investigational new drug application, which allows it to be tested on humans. If this drug is for a disease or condition for which there is no currently approved medication, they may also apply for an orphan drug status, which allows them advancements in their processing and faster development of the drug. The next step in the new drug development is a phase 1 safety study. And this begins at a low dose, and gradually the doses are increased until there's some evidence of side effects or adverse events. If the drug proves safe, then it can advance to a phase 2 study, which is a small efficacy study. Many new drugs are first tried on people who are terminally ill and for which there is no viable treatment option. If it seems to work in this small study, that study may be expanded. Frequently, phase 2 studies are divided into a phase 2A and 2B, 2A being a small study and 2B being a larger study. After completing a phase 2 study, a potential new drug may be advanced into a phase 3 study. This would be a large study, and it may be the new drug versus an older drug that's already approved, or against a placebo. The new drug has to prove that it works at least as well as a currently approved drug, preferably better, or that if there is no current drug approved, that it works better than a placebo. After this test, if it looks promising, then the company will file for a new drug application. And this application is often for a particular indication. A new drug may be tested on only one very specific group of people with a very specific condition. Later on, this same drug might be tested for a second indication. For example, a drug might only be tested on adults initially, but later on be tested for use with children. Once that new drug application is submitted, there's an advisory committee meeting. These are experts from outside the government who look at the new drug research data and vote on whether this drug should be approved or not. While Food and Drug typically follows the advice of the advisory committee, there have been cases where they were unwilling to approve a drug because the safety tests didn't look adequate or for other reasons. But if everything has gone well to this point, and note many drugs do not make it through the phase 3 in the advisory committee, but if it does, then it may be approved for Food and Drug Administration and will begin to be used on humans. Just because a company gets a new drug approved does not mean that it will reach the consumer in any current time. Next step in the process will be manufacturing approval, in which the Food and Drug inspects the facility where it's going to be made and makes sure that the process will be sanitary, but will also be consistent and safe. Even after that's been approved and people begin to receive this new drug, there will be continuing reports after market follow-up. Any adverse effects of the new drug have to be reported back to the Food and Drug Administration. Through this, they are monitoring to see that a drug is not approved, which later on turns out to have significant negative side effects. It's important to understand how placebo controls work. People's beliefs about the medication they are taking can be very powerful. Let me give you an example. If we were to pair two classrooms of students and offer them the chance throughout the semester to take a new experimental drug that's been shown to boost test scores, it is likely that after taking it through the semester, both of these classes of students would show an improvement in test scores. Simply the fact that they're taking something and believe it should help their studying ability might increase it. During the course of this semester, some of the students are going to experience an episode in which they have constipation. Some of the students may experience a night or several nights where they have diarrhea. Some students will come to class very tired one day after taking this new smart medication. Other students will have nights where they had difficulty sleeping at all. During the course of the semester, we would expect many people to catch colds or flu and have respiratory symptoms or allergies. All of these things would get recorded as side effects. When we compare a placebo to an active drug, what we want to know is not how many people taking the new active drug got constipated or diarrhea, but how much higher that rate was than for the people who were taking the placebo, which contained no active ingredients. This comparison helps us determine whether the smart drug in fact worked or whether a sugar pill would have worked just as well. It's also possible that the experimenter, if they know whether the drug the person is taking is the real thing or the placebo, could alter the effects. Just the way they talk to the patient might alter the patient's response. In a double-blind test, neither the patient taking the medication nor the doctor administering it knows whether this is the active ingredient or the placebo. This allows a very good determination of whether the drug is actually working or if the results we're seeing are only the result of increased attention to the patient on the part of the doctor and staff. Some other things to be aware of in understanding new drug development. An investigational new drug is only approved for use in a registered clinical trial. The federal government maintains a registry of ongoing clinical trials, and people who have exhausted all medical treatments available to them or their doctors may check that registry looking for a clinical trial that participant can participate in. Also, it's important to look at orphan drug status. Those drugs can be moved through the process very rapidly, especially for conditions in which currently no drug is effective and for which people are likely to die. There are indications a drug might be approved only in a certain age group or for a certain illness, but it is possible if the drug is effective in working in one age group or for one condition that a doctor would decide once the drug had been approved for an off-label use. Sometimes doctors give a psychiatric medication to children, which were tested on adults and seem relatively safe. But because of the high cost of running large phase 3 trials, some drugs have never been tested on children. When they're used off-label by the doctor, Any adverse effects then on the child would have to be reported to Food and Drug. And over time, this might prove evidence of the safety of this drug in a population or for an indication that it had not been tested in. A large part of the drugs consumed in the United States are generic drugs. It costs a very large amount for a company to develop a new drug and get it approved. If they are successful in that effort, they get a patent which makes them the exclusive company to make or market that drug. Sometimes that company licenses those rights to another company. When that patent expires, other companies who did not pay for doing the research can step in and begin to make generic drugs. They have to prove that their drug is equivalent to the previous brand name drug and that their manufacturing process is safe. Those generic drugs are sold at a cheaper price, even though they are the same chemical formula, but they are made by a different company than the original manufacturer. While the drugs are substantially similar, most drugs include a large number of fillers. A pure form of the drug might be so tiny you couldn't pick it up and put it in your mouth. It has to be placed into a tablet or capsule which contain other ingredients. Those fillers can be different. Certain people are more sensitive to them. It's also possible that the generic drug may be less bioavailable. So while in general it's chemically the same and works the same as the brand name, for some people it doesn't work as well. In that case, your doctor would have to get permission from your insurance company to prescribe you the brand name drug instead of the generic drug. Another new development in this area is the use of biological drugs, which are not manufactured in the same way, but developed chemically synthesized. And when a biological drug runs out of patent, other companies have to come up with their own process for creating this biological compound. If they're successful and can prove that their biosimilar drug works in the same way that the original compound did, they may receive licenses in order to market that drug. Thanks for watching another Counselor Soapbox video. What's ahead? More drug education videos, many about specific drugs. Also, some mental health and wellness videos. If you've enjoyed this video, please click the like button, which is directly below this. Comments are always appreciated. And to receive new videos in this series, please subscribe to the Counselor Soapbox video channel. For more information, please visit the Counselorssoapbox.com blog, where you will find articles on mental health, substance abuse, and having a happy life. The David Joel Miller fiction and nonfiction books are available on Amazon.